Hey, it's Michael. Welcome to the channel where we figure stuff out together because we're all in this together. This is a passion of mine, fantasy football. Good news and bad news. Bad news first is I don't look like Sydney Sweeney, which is I put on the thumbnail. That was just try to attract your attention, you dirty bastards. The good news is I did win a $100,000 jackpot on DraftKings a couple of years ago. And I'm going to teach you, this is the extra good news, I'm going to teach you how you can also win the 100,000 or a smaller jackpot, or maybe the 2 million, but especially your home leagues. If you do fantasy football draft with 10 or 12 friends, you will have a tremendous advantage from my experience of success. And there are some definitely tricks of the trade that I will pass along to you so you can have that advantage as well. All right, so let me give you a little history of my history with fantasy sports. I would say I've done fantasy sports for as long as there has been fantasy sports. I remember in, I think, 1979, there was a magazine called Inside Sports. And at the end of the magazine, at the very last page, there was some sort of story about regular people doing sports. And I remember this one particular article was about this group of people who did rotisserie baseball. And it was called rotisserie baseball because they all met at a rotisserie chicken restaurant and figured out a way to all pick different players and keep track of it and sort of be your own general manager. And they did this and they had a lot of fun. And the moment I read this, I was 15 years old. I contacted my friends, Nick and Andrew and Craig, and I said, hey, guys, do you want to do a rotisserie baseball league? And I had to explain to them what that was, and we figured it out. I did all the stats myself. Obviously, there was no Yahoo or anything back then. And every week I would do the stats by hand and all the math of it and send out, the results and who's winning. And nobody kind of knew what it was, but it was kind of fun and new. So what is that? Almost 40, 50 years ago. God, okay. So that's scary. Then I played fantasy or rotisserie baseball for all those years, maybe for 10, 15, 20 years. But then I had kids and it took up a lot of time. It was a lot of fun. I loved the draft and doing all that, but it was too time consuming. I was still doing it a lot by hand. So I kind of retired from fantasy baseball and for maybe 15, 20 years. And then my kids got older and I was able to sort of get back in. I didn't want to do baseball again because baseball was very long. The whole season's too long, and I didn't want to have that kind of heavy lift there. But especially it was around the pandemic time, and my business was non-existent, just like everybody else. And I was kind of looking for something to as a hobby, just some sort of hobby, which I didn't have in my life. And I said, okay, I used to do fantasy baseball, but this football has become such a big thing. Maybe I'll try fantasy football and see what that's like. And there was only one problem. I didn't know anything about football. I couldn't name 15 players from the NFL, maybe the quarterbacks, but I didn't, have too much knowledge of the second string running backs for sure, or anything in depth past the superstars. But I remembered a story when I heard this when I was a kid. Remember when there was a show called or if you don't know, there was a show called the $64,000 Question back in the beginning of TV. And people would go on, and it was like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You had to answer whatever it was, 15 straight questions. And if you did that, you got to the $64,000 question, and the whole nation would watch, and it was a big deal. And it was always, the difference was with the $64,000 question was it was one topic. So the person would come on and say, I want to do politics. I want to do science. I want to do Shakespeare. And very rarely would somebody win the whole thing. until somebody figured out, and for the older people, they would know this woman named Joyce Brothers. She was a young woman, just not even Dr. Joyce Brothers, and she was not an expert on anything. But she figured that if she could find a topic that has a finite amount of information, she could just study the hell out of that topic, learn everything about this one topic, and then become an expert and get on the $64,000 question, which I love the whole, drawing up that concept. So it turns out this young lady, Joyce Brothers, picked a finite topic, something you'd never think of. She picked boxing because she knew boxing was only around for 100 years. There was only so many fights, so many championships, so many dates to remember. And for 6 months, she didn't know anything about boxing, but she memorized the boxing history, everything you could possibly know, because it was a finite amount of information. She went on the $64,000 question. She was a young woman, maybe 19, 20 years old. She became a national, fascination. She won the $64,000 question. She ended up becoming Dr. Joyce Brothers, and she became this sort of influential person for the next 30 years. So she really built upon this great idea that she had. So in that thought process, during COVID, I didn't know much about football, but I said to myself, okay, there's a finite number. There's only so many teams. There's only so many players. There's only so many things that could happen, even though that's a lot. I'll figure this out. Just like the channel says, I'll figure this shit out. Well, okay. I put in, I think I put in $300 into DraftKings. And I proceeded to lose all of it. Every week I lost. Lost week 1, lost week 2, lost week 3, lost week 4. Not even close. Like maybe I'd play $50 and I'd win 3, or $40 and win 5. But I mean, this was a down the drain situation. But as the channel says, figuring shit out. I said, okay, stop. It's like anything else. Stop and evaluate. What am I doing wrong? Obviously, I'm really bad at this. So I said, okay, let me look to see what the winning rosters each week are. And just to take a step back, on DraftKings or Underdog or any of these online sites, every week you pick a roster with a salary. So it's a little different than home leagues. Home leagues are season long. These are daily. And so I went back and I said, okay, let me look at the rosters that are winning. Maybe I can kind of replicate the logic behind it. And I started to see how they did it. And with daily fantasy, and this also covers home leagues, there's a certain strategy that I was noticing to the winning, whether they did it on purpose or not. But there's a term for it. It's called stacking. And what that means is you want your quarterback and your receiver often to be from the same team. Because if Jordan Love throws a touchdown and you get points for that touchdown, well, it's great if you have Jordan Reed who catches it, and then you both get points. You get points for the quarterback and the receiver. So that's one way of stacking. Another way of stacking is, and this is a little bit deeper, is you got to pick a defense in daily fantasy. So if you pick a defense, and again, you're telling a story, you're creating a story. Okay, the Packers are going to have a good defense this year, and they're going to play games where they are ahead and they need to run out the clock, or they're not going to throw big passes when they're ahead, right? They're going to run the ball. So a stack with that logic would be Patriots defense and a Patriot running back, which this year Henderson is the big running back. So you're putting together a story, right? At the end of the day on Sunday, if you're doing daily fantasy, your day for us on the East Coast at least starts at 1 o'clock and ends at 7:30. What is the idea for me is when you're filling out your lineups all week or at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock before the games start, what's the day going to be like? What's going to be the story at 7:30? So if you think the Patriots are going to have a 27-10 victory, well, okay, so what happens in that? They're going to score 27 points, but their defense is going to play well, so probably the running back's going to play well. The other way to think about it is, okay, let's say opening week in 2025 is going to be Minnesota and the Bears. If you think that game is going to be a very high-scoring game, and Las Vegas will give you these hints. Las Vegas is built on them understanding what's going to happen better than us, right? So it's almost like a professional stock picker. Follow the guidance of Vegas. You're not going to be too far off. Better to play with the system than to fight the system. So if Vegas says the game is going to be a 50-point total, which is a high-scoring game, then stacking that game, you'd want one of the quarterbacks, if not both. You're going to want, so again, let's take it from the Chicago and Minnesota game that's going to be first week. If you think that the Bears are going to do great and win that game, 33-30, then you want Williams as your quarterback, and you want a receiver like Odunze or Moore to stack those two. And then you want to bring back. So the idea is that, okay, the game is theoretically going to be a high-scoring game, back and forth down the field. So you want to stack the quarterback with the receiver and then a receiver from the other team. So you take, like I said, Odunze and Williams from Chicago, and then you take Jefferson coming back or bringing back from Minnesota, because if the game is 33-30, they're going to be throwing a lot. They're going to be back and forth trying to compete with each other. So you want to get the maximum points. And if you can pick the game of the week that has the most points and then stack that particular game, well, then you're in a pretty good elevated territory. Now you're competing against, just a small fraction of players. So let me just tell you the story about when I won first place. Putting all these things into place that I'm kind of telling you now. The category was a playoff. So I had lost all year, right? Back to that story. I had lost everything. I've lost all year. I wasn't even coming close to winning one, small prize. I was winning $5 and $10 at the most. And these are big contests. First place could be 20,000 or 25,000, or in this case, my contest that I won was $100,000 first place. So it happened to be the first playoff weekend, and it was $15 entry fee, and there were 25,000 entries. So a big field. And first place was 100,000, and second place was 25, and third place was 10, and so on and so forth. So I filled out I did 3 or 4 entries. And the interesting thing about my picks is, again, there's some strategy about stacking, but like I said, taking Williams and Moore and Jefferson is not going to be very unique. Even though it's great to do the stacking, more than likely there'll be a lot of people who do a similar roster. So what I didn't want to happen was I didn't want to beat out 24,990 players and then be tied with 10 people for the 100,000. Not that winning 10,000 wouldn't be fantastic. But if I'm going to do this, I want to win the jackpot myself, 100,000. Because if you're tied, if you have the same roster or the same points, you're going to split it 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've seen it be split 20 ways. So $100,000 jackpot first place could be split $5,000 each. I'd rather go for it. So by going for it, you have to be unique, right? You can pick 2 or 3 or 4 of the same players as a lot of people, but you got to find that hidden gem, the one that you will only have, the combination that's unique. So this is where figuring shit out matters. And, I'm also up against people who do this full time. There are YouTube channels. You'll click on a million YouTube channels of experts, people who have computer formulas that, have every information, every down to the decimal of what's going to happen. I don't have that. The only thing that I have is what has gotten me through everything, and that's just being able to watch people and understand human beings. That's the only difference. I like the numbers. I understand the numbers are important, but you got to pass the eye test. It's like in baseball when everything is by the metrics of what to do here and what to do there. But the old school people, the Joe Torres of the world, and managers that just have to go by their gut, and that's what I'm going to do with this. So what happened was, again, this was pandemic time, and I was just looking for kind of a hobby at this point. But I got Red Zone, and actually, I didn't have Red Zone. I apologize. It was the pandemic time, and I didn't want to spend the money on the Red Zone, which ended up being the best thing. Because when you don't have Red Zone, you're forced to watch the only games that will go on the regular networks, NBC, CBS, and Fox. So I was watching whatever was on, and there was a game. It was a 1:00 game, again, East Coast, that was ending, and it was a Patriot game. And the Patriots were getting killed. They were down by 30 points. It was 45-14 or something. And I had no choice but to watch this. If I had Red Zone, nobody would be watching this game. But I had no choice. The next game wasn't starting. I was sitting there, so I watched the game. 45-14, and a minute and 10 seconds left, and it was just run out time. Patriots had the ball, but they're not scoring 30 points. But I noticed that they threw a pass, and the guy who caught the pass didn't just step out of bounds or drop to the ground. He fought for 3 extra yards. They're down 30 points. So what's he fighting for the 3 extra yards for? It made no sense to me. And then now there's only 40 seconds left, and they went to throw another ball to the same guy. And he's fighting 2 guys to get some extra yardage. It took me back. And I'm like, what is this guy all about? I mean, and then I thought, this guy is I could relate to him, right? He's persistent, and he just doesn't give up. It doesn't matter the score. He's not giving up. He doesn't care. He's going to get what he can. He's going to work hard. He's never going to stop. And that just resonated with me. I remembered his names. It was Kenneth Bourne. And I wrote it down just to have a note. I like his whole process. All right, that was like week 4 or 5. So now it's the first week of the playoffs, 3 months later. And I'm filling out my lineup. And like I said, we're all going to have the stacks of the better players. But you only have so much salary to use. You have to be able to get a cheap guy in a spot, in a cheap wide receiver, a cheap tight end, cheap running back. And And I was looking through my options and I saw Bourne. And I remembered that's the guy who fought for those extra yards. That's the guy who wouldn't give up. And I said, you know what? That's the kind of guy, you don't need a lot from that position. If you're spending very little on that position, whether it be auction or a daily fantasy, salary cap, those, people don't need to, score 3 touchdowns. But if they get you 1 touchdown, or they get you 80 yards, or they get you, anything of substance, those extra points are so valuable. That's what separates you from all the other people. So I filled out, like I said, 3 or 4 lineups for that contest. They were $15 each. And in 2 of them, I put Bourne, Bourne. And the way my Sundays would go playing daily fantasy football was I'd work on this from like Thursday to Sunday. Kickoff is 1 p.m. again, East Coast. And I'd feel great. I'd feel so confident. 12 o'clock, I'm like, oh my God, I love my lineup. 12:30, love my lineup. 1 o'clock kickoff. 107, I hate my lineup. 107, I can't believe how terrible this guy is. I can't believe how terrible that guy is. How did this guy drop the, why, what's going on? By 107, I was already defeated. That's how it was for all the weeks leading up to this. But this week, something happened early on and I got off to a good start. 107, it was okay. 115, I was okay. 230, I was okay. And then, so the way it works is the first games ended 4-ish, and then the second game started 4:15, 4:30. And I was in really good shape. I was like in the top 20% of the contest after the first games on Sunday. So this is very rare for me. And I started to get excited. So in the second half of the games, the 4 o'clock games, I had a few players, and they also were doing well. And by this point, I was standing on the sofa watching the games, and as if I, of course, was controlling everything. And I wouldn't get down, and I wouldn't drink anything. Whatever it was, the superstitions were going crazy. And I was in the top 100 of 25,000. And now if it ended at, top 100, I would have made like $300, which for me would have been fantastic. It would have made up for my whole year. And I got another touchdown, and somebody else did something. And I started to move up. It moves up dramatically. I went from 100 down to 150, which is like, $80, winning $80. And I moved up to 80, which is like winning, $400. And then at one point I just jumped up because stacking, my quarterback threw a touchdown to my receiver. And I made a big jump to like 12th place out of 25,000. And there was like 15 minutes left for the Sunday games. And I was like, oh my God, I just need one more play. And I one of the games happened to be the New England game. And my inexpensive pick, Bourne, was playing. And so I have 10 players in my roster. And probably 7 or 8 were exactly the same as the other leaders, because again, your bulk team has to do really well to get you to that top 10 group. But what separated my team from the other 10 was Bourne. That crazy pick, that crazy guy I saw 3 months ago that kept fighting for yards even though he was down 30 points. And again, similar situation, Patriots were down a lot. And similar situation, they threw the ball to the sideline. And 99 out of 100 or more, that receiver doesn't want to get hurt. He runs off to the sideline and off to the next play and off to the next year, because this is the last game of the season. But they threw it to Bourne, and Bourne, instead of going out of bounds, ran up the sideline. And as he's running up the sideline, I could see the points adding up. Every yard is another tenth of a point. And he keeps going, and he went 30 yards. So it was like 3 extra points, plus the catch is 4 points. And I went to check my phone, and holy shit, I'm in first place out of 25,000 people. And all because of Bourne. All because I didn't have red zone. All because I watched that last few minutes of the game from 3 months ago, and I remembered that guy. And now I want the contest to end. I'm in first place. 100,000 out of 25,000 people, I'm in first place. Grand prize, $100,000. And the games are ending, and the clocks are winding down. And for anybody who remembers, the Miracle on Ice, I felt like that, right? I just wanted the game to end. In the Miracle of Ice, the U.S. was actually beating Russia, and you just want the clock to run out. And that's what I wanted. And I kept thinking about the Miracle on Ice, because I'm just learning how to play fantasy football, and here I am, first place out of 25,000. Just end right here. And I'm watching the clock. I don't want anything big to happen in any of the games left. And 3, 2, 1, game ends. And all the games end. And I check my phone, I update, and I'm in first place. I see my name. First place, $100,000 next to my name. And I it's like a dream. I text all my friends and my family, and I show them a screenshot of me in first place for $100,000, and I write, do you believe in miracles? Because that's what Al Michaels said when the USA won, they beat Russia. Do you believe in miracles? And my family's like, oh my God, Mike, amazing, $100,000, I can't believe it, you won. And I'm in shock, and I can't believe it. I played all year, I didn't win anything, and now I win $100,000. I just couldn't believe it. And it took a few minutes, and I looked on the screenshot, and I looked on top, because I always played daily fantasy football, which was the Sunday games. But this was the last game of the last week of the season, and it said Sunday to Monday. Not just Sunday, Sunday to Monday. And my heart dropped, because there was still a game on Monday night that counted, and I didn't realize it. And the first thing I had to do was text all the people who were congratulating me and say, oh, stop. I'm only in first place. I didn't win. There's still a game on Monday night. And I had no players left on Monday night. So this was not good. And I spent the next 24 hours like, I'd rather have lost than be in this situation where I'm in first, but now I have no players left. And I went to go look and I see who has players left on Monday, and the team in 12th place and 16th place and 18th place and 20th place, and they all had players left on Monday. And it was a long 24 hours, and I went to go watch the Monday night game, and I thought, okay, I didn't have much control here, but the only thing that could save me is if nobody does really well, no player of the other of the teams playing does really well, so it doesn't move things that much. And 2, defenses, you can actually go down in points with defense. If your defense gets hit, you can lose points. So I figured it out that I do have a shot. If the game is sort of a middle of the road game, 21-18, No offensive player does great. The defenses don't do great. I could sneak in, and I stood the whole game Monday night, and I went from. And what happens is, so a couple of the teams had defenses, and what happens with DraftKings is the moment the game starts, your defense is given 10 points. So the moment that Monday night game started, I went from first place to ninth place. So I went from 100,000 to, $400. Heartbreaking. But again, defenses can fluctuate. If you give up some points, your 10 points become 6 or 5 or 4, whatever. So I went from first to ninth the moment the game started. And then once the team scored a little bit, it leveled out and I started coming back up and I hit back into first place again. About the third quarter. And I was in the same situation I was Sunday. Just wanted to end. Nothing happened. I don't want the defense can't score a touchdown, can't have a pick six. The offense can't do anything dramatic. The quarterback can't throw a 60-yard pass. The running back can't run for a 30-yard touchdown. Nothing, just nothing crazy. It's like playing poker when you have a lead, but you just don't want anything crazy to happen. And I had to sweat out the last 5 minutes just watching the seconds go by. It's endless. Guy goes out of bounds. His clock stops. The guy gets his ankle twist. His clock stops. And I'm just watching those seconds, and that's always painful. And once again, it was like my second time, U.S. against Russia, and the clock went down to 0, the last game of the week, and I was in first place. And I went back to my text chain, and I wrote, "Do you believe in miracles part 2? Because now it's officially good, and I won the $100,000. So that's my story. And the lessons in the story, I'm going to tell you the secrets of now how I do it, and I've learned a lot. But the secret to that one is the stacking, having those combos, but also being able to, again, that will get you so far. That will get you high up there, but you want to be the lone winner. You got to separate yourself from the herd at that point, and having that sleeper, that person who nobody else is picking. And I'm going to give you a list for 2025 of those type of players. And those players make the difference between middle of the road to greatness. So it's a long video. That's my story. I'm going to give you some secrets to winning. I'm going to go through each team and give you some picks from each team, and I'm going to give you some sleepers. All right, I think the best thing to do is we're going to go through each team. I'm going to go through the roster a little bit. This way you could fast forward if you want to get to a certain team. I'm going to go division by division. I'll give you my thoughts of the team. If there's anybody on there that I think is a sleeper or going to be good this year, I'll list that. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to start with the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. And they're obviously a good team. Now, again, this whole thing depends on what you're looking for. If you're doing daily fantasy, well, that's different. You wanted daily fantasy is that particular week. That's where I won the $100,000. And then that's all about matchups. They're playing, this team is playing this team. Back to what I said before, what is the end of the day look like? Which game was a blowout? Which game scored the most points? Which game was the defensive game? And you got to figure that out and who's going to do well that particular day. If you're doing best ball, which is where I spend a lot of my time now with best ball. Best ball is you pick all your players at the beginning of the year. You do a 16-person roster or a 20-person roster, and your best players of each week are the points that count. I love that because I don't have to set a roster each week. And then the third option is your friends league, where you do an auction or a draft, and you're with the players for the whole year, and you have to kind of put them into your live roster, or if you want to play them that week or not. So it's a little different mindset depending on what you are looking for. So it's a little different mindset, right? Depending on what you're looking for. But let's go team by team, and you'll fit this into the way you want to. Bills, obviously a good team. The reason I bring this up at the beginning is when you're doing best ball, you're very concerned about, again, it's great to have a good year, but you want to win. And as a general rule in best ball, the playoffs are a week 15, 16, and 17. So you have to look at the schedule and see where these players will be playing, what teams they'll be playing against. If they're going to be playing in Baltimore, who has a great defense and terrible weather, well, you may not want them on your best ball team, even though you want to win the first, 16 weeks of the year, 14 weeks of the year. You need to do well in week 15, 16, and 17. So if they're playing in Baltimore in week 17, you may not want them for the whole year. If they're playing in Green Bay, that in the playoffs, you may not want them. So those are things to think about, a lot to think about. But looking at the Bills, for the long time this offseason, we thought maybe James Cook was not going to be available. He was having contract issues, negotiations. He is back. My only problem with James Cook is he scored 18 touchdowns last year. I don't think he can do that again. And if he doesn't do that again, he's going to go down the ranking. And what you want, regardless of the format you're doing, whether it's DFS or best ball or home leagues, you want players who are going to just do a little bit better than what you paid for them. So like Bourne, I paid very little. He had a above average game, and that gap is what you're looking for. So Josh Allen, of course, no brainer. He's a guy who can do everything, get you 20, 25, 30 points in some weeks. He's great, but who's he going to throw it to? Buffalo is a weird team. They spread the ball around, which is great for real football, but not for fantasy football. And that's my problem. Who do I stack Josh Allen with? Do I stack him with Shakir, which I like? Shakir is very, very good and reliable, but he is a little hurt now. Do I stack him with Coleman, who's young and potentially a really good, receiver with long catches? Do I put him with Palmer, who came over this year and seems to be in use? Kincaid is the tight end, who was supposed to be great the last couple of years and hasn't been. And Allen is good friends with Knox, the other tight end. So it's a little messy for me, the Buffalo Bills. I will take Allen on his own sometimes just because he could run it in. He could score 30 points without anybody else doing great. But my problem with the Bills is who's he going to throw to? I would take some Shakir. I would take some Coleman, a little bit of Palmer. Tight ends I'm too nervous about the tight ends. So it's tough to key in on the Bills. But Josh Allen, certainly you want a little bit of Josh Allen. Then we go to the Dolphins. Dolphins is another story. Again, we're trying to figure out the stories here. They have Tua as the quarterback. When he's playing, he's pretty good. When he's not playing, it's terrible, obviously. Even when he's playing, to me, it never looks like he's great. Like he gets the ball there, but the balls seem to float. They're not like Stout or Nix or Allen, or the balls don't seem to zip. But he's been effective. But he also, again, is not somebody you should be counting on completely. And then you got Achane, who's the running back, who's an unbelievable running back, but he needs Tua because he catches the ball. So is Tua going to be there? Is Achane going to be healthy? Tyreek Hill, is he going to be arrested this week? Is he still, who he is? Waddle, he could have a game where he scores 28 points and he can have a game where he scores 2 points. It's a tough team. I'll give you a sleeper on Miami. I'll give you two sleepers. The first one is Malik Washington, who I've watched, and again, you could almost get him for free in these leagues. But if one of the receivers goes down, Waddle or Hill, Malik, just like last year, I had a lot of Juwanna Smith as tight end, and he did great last year. So I think Malik Washington is in that similar role where he's going to be a sneaky receiver. I would take him. They do have Westbrook. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Westbrook Ekine, who caught like so many touchdowns last year on Tennessee. He's there as well. He could have a similar role where he catches these crazy amount of touchdowns, but Malik is super fast, and I could see him having the role like Smith had last year. So that would be a sleeper for the Miami Dolphins. And past that, I wouldn't know who necessarily to key on. You could have a little bit of all those folks, but I wouldn't spend too much on any of them. New England Patriots. Really like Drake May. So as a general thing here for best bowl, I don't think the playoff schedule for the Patriots was that great. If I remember correctly, I think they're at the Jets week 17, which is not ideal, again, weather-wise, defense-wise. But Drake May is a guy who can run, can pass. The receivers are also a little tough. You have Diggs, who's 30-something years old. I don't have a lot of him, but I think Douglas is really good. He ended up having a lot of good games last year. I think he will get some attention. By the way, it's Kendrick Bourne. I said Kenneth Bourne before. It's Kendrick Bourne. He's still on the team, and I would take him for old time's sake, but I think he's a little hurt. But New England does have two sleepers or two young players that you should be watching. One is Kyle Williams, who had a really good couple of preseason games and looks like he potentially could be the number one receiver on New England, and you can get him really cheap, or he could end up being the fourth receiver, so you don't know, but it's worth a shot. And then the other one is Travion Henderson as a running back. That could be the pick of the year. They have Stevenson, who's the running back, and he's had a couple of decent seasons, but he fumbles the ball and hasn't been impressive. Henderson has just seemed like a Kamara type in the preseason that doesn't always go into the real season, but everything about him looks like that's a home run, and people are still not quite on him. He has moved up. I mean, you could have got him really cheap at the beginning of the year, but you could still get him relatively cheap. Anybody who can get Henderson on New England, you should get him because he catches the ball and runs the ball and even does kickoffs, but he seems like the real deal. And to finish out the AFC East, we have the Jets. I don't know what to tell you about the Jets. I used to like Breece Hall. Seems like super talented guy, but the staff doesn't seem to be into him for whatever reason. Maybe he'll get traded to Dallas and become Dallas's first string running back. If that happens, it's a grand slam if you have him. Otherwise, his time is getting taken up between Allen, the running back, and even Davis, the running back. You could take Allen for the same reason. If Breece Hall gets traded, Allen becomes the number one running back, and that's amazing. Justin Fields is the quarterback. I don't have a lot of faith in him. I know he can run like crazy, but he's going to throw interceptions. He's going to get sacked. So I don't love him. I really like the idea of Mason Taylor, the tight end. That could be a sleeper. He was hurt, but now miraculously he's better. And I don't like Garrett Wilson. I know he's talented, but again, Justin Fields is throwing to him. How much is he going to get? So I would take a shot on Allen as the running back. I take a little bit of a shot on Breece Hall, hoping he gets traded, and I would take some on Mason Taylor, the tight end. All right, we're moving to the AFC North. Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, Josh Allen, Lamar, Daniels, those are the top three quarterbacks. It's good to get one of the top three, depending on, again, what type of league you're in. Are you getting one quarterback, two quarterbacks? Best ball, you take three quarterbacks. But you can't go wrong with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. Then again, here again, who's he throwing to? He kind of spreads it around too. There's no great person to stack him with. Zay Flowers, I really like him, but he just doesn't seem to get enough attempts. Bateman has always had the potential to be great, but never seems to. He'll have one game where he kills it, and then the next game he's just non-existent. Everybody loves Mark Andrews. I'm not a big Mark Andrews fan. He shit the bed last year. He got hurt. But likely the backup tight end is hurt now, so maybe they'll rely on Andrews a little bit more. I would take a little bit of a chance with Andrews, even though I'm not a big fan. I would take a little bit of a chance with Bateman because he seems to be improving a little bit. And the running backs are really interesting. Derrick Henry is a monster, but he's getting older. Could he have another great year? Sure. You don't want to miss out on that, but he is getting older. I really like Justice Hill, the backup. He will catch passes, so if you're in a league where catching passes matters. And even the third string, Keaton Mitchell, is really great. He had a couple of great games a couple of years ago where he looked like the next best thing, but it has not been able to stay healthy. So it's a tough one. I would have a little sprinkle of each, but I wouldn't go too crazy with any of them. But obviously, you're going to have a good team with the Ravens. Next team is the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, Joe Burrow is great. You're not going to get a ton of rushing yards, if that matters, but he is going to throw the ball. The key with the Bengals, just like it's always been, their defense is terrible, and it might even get worse. So they're always going to be in these games that are 37-34, which means he's always going to be throwing, he's got the greatest receiver in football, Jamar Chase. So again, stacking Burrow and Chase, can't go wrong. Chase Brown might be one of the better running backs to pick. He also runs great and catches the ball. He may lose a little bit of the goal line work in some occasions, which hurts. But for the most part, he seems to be a workhorse. People love T. Higgins. I don't love him, but there are games where he just goes off. And their third string, the third receiver, Savas, will also have these games where he goes off. So, any Bengal is going to be good at this point because they're going to be a big offense. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got Aaron Rodgers, quarterback. I don't know. I mean, he's not going to win you a league, I don't think. Could he lose you a league by taking up a spot? He might. Metcalf seems to be the number one receiver by far. So if you're going to go Rodgers, you're going to go Metcalf. That's not a bad combination. Running back, I really like Caleb Johnson. He looked great. Looked like another Derrick Henry at some point in the preseason, but now it's looking like Warren might take a lot of the load. So that's kind of iffy. I don't think there's any great value here. Plus, again, if you're in best ball, I don't think their playoff schedule is that great. So I would not be too keen on too many Steelers at this point. All right, moving to the AFC South, Houston Texans. Stroud, quarterback. I really liked him. Obviously, 2 years ago, he had a great rookie season. Didn't have as good a season last year. Is it a fluke? Is he more like the first season or the second season? Don't know. But he's got great receivers. Nico Collins could be the best receiver in football. Christian Kirk came over from the Jaguars. He's going to play the slot. He's going to get a lot of quick passes. Higgins seems to be good, but I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. Schultz is tight end, average, has some good games. The running backs are a mess. Everyone's hurt. So you can't go wrong with Stroud. You can't go wrong with Collins. You can't go wrong with Kirk, I don't think. But the problem with this team is, again, you got to look at the full picture. They're going to be a really good defensive team. They're the opposite of the Bengals. They're going to be more conservative playing because their defense is good. They would normally want to run the ball, but their running backs are terrible at the moment. So it might lead to a little bit more of a throwing situation temporarily, but once the running backs are healthy, it may ease down a little bit. So I don't know if you're going to get those big, 37, 34 games that you need, but I would certainly have, I do have some Nico Collins and Kirk and Stroud in my teams. I would take it week by week if you can. God, Indianapolis Colts. It's been a bumpy ride for them with their quarterbacks, whether it be Daniel Jones, who I thought could be good, Richardson, who I thought they could be good, and it turns out neither one are that good. So Daniels won the job. I would have a little bit of Daniels. I think he's competent. He could run. He's sneaky fast. Again, on that team, who's he going to throw to? Pittman has always been the number one, but he's always disappointing. He just hasn't been that superstar. Josh Downs has that potential, but can't keep healthy. Alec Pierce seemed to catch these big bombs, but then doesn't do anything the following week. I think there's only one, and Jonathan Taylor is a superstar that I just never could get behind. He just never passed the eyeball test for me. He always has the numbers. He killed it last year for best ball in the playoffs, so anybody who had him did well. And if he stays healthy, then take him. But I just never been a big fan. But the number one player on the Indianapolis that seems to be the way to go, great if competition doesn't know this, but their tight end, Tyler Warren, looks to be like the next Kelsey. And for somebody like Jones, or it ends up being Richardson, who has to dump the ball off on shorter passes, Tyler Warren seems to be the guy. And if you can get a tight end that really kicks ass, you could really do well in any league that you're in. So that's the number one pick from the Colts. We're going to go down to the Jaguars. And God, I mean, I've been waiting for Trevor Lawrence to have the year, and this could be it. He's got a new coach, Liam Cohen, and who came from Tampa Bay and who made Baker Mayfield a star. I think it could happen again. I would have some Trevor Lawrence here. He's got who potentially could be an amazing receiver in Travis Hunter, but he also plays defense, so is he going to play both? But the sure thing is Brian Thomas Jr. He had a great first year. He's going to have a great second year. That's, pretty sure. But Jaguars have an interesting offense. Diami Brown, who's their third receiver, is going to have some big games. And even their fifth receiver, Parker Washington, in a pinch, and especially keep an eye out if any of the receivers get hurt and Parker Washington gets in the game, he has good potential. As far as the running backs go, they have three running backs. I never liked ETN, never liked him. He had big games, but again, the eyeball test. Bigsby's had some good games, but he doesn't catch the ball. And Tootin is the young guy who can do both, but he fumbles and he may not get the time. So what to do? I'm hoping that gets clearer in the next couple of weeks, but keep an eye out. One of them is going to do great. Because Liam Cohen is the guy that sort of turned Irving into a superstar in Tampa Bay. He's going to do one of those three guys. You got to just try to see which one. If you have the right one, you're going to do great. But Lawrence and the receivers are definitely some to consider. Tennessee Titans to finish out the AFC. I think they're going to be fun. They've had no decent quarterback for the last few years. Now they have Cam Ward, who seems to be the real deal. I think if he's average to above average, he's going to have a pretty good year. They're going to be playing from behind again. Their defense is not great, so they're going to have to throw the ball. And they only have, this is like where stacking really comes in. He's only got 2 or 3 people to throw the ball to. So it's Ridley, the rookie, Aomana, and Okonkwo, the tight end. All three of them, as long as they stay healthy, should have good years. And then as running back, Pollard was amazing a couple of years ago for the Cowboys. Pretty good the last year or two with Tennessee, but he was splitting time with Spears. Spears is hurt now, so Pollard may get more time. He has the ability to catch the ball too. So any combination of those could be really good for this year. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not finished with AFC. We're in the AFC West. Denver Broncos. Quarterback is Bo Nix. He looked really great last year. I like him, but same situation again. Who's he throwing to? They have Sutton, who looked great. They have Mims, who looked great. Franklin is supposed to be good. Ingram now is the tight end. Then they have the rookies, Pat Bryant, who's supposed to be good. They have Vele, who looked good at times last year. So how do you stack them? I don't know how to do it. And then they're going to be run heavy. And who's going to be running? Is it Dobbins? Is it Harvey? Is it Estime? And also they have the same situation. If you're in best ball, the playoff schedule is not great as far as I remember. So as much as I will do these combos during the year, but I don't know how to commit to any of those people, even though they're going to have good years. Somebody's going to have great years. I just don't know who they would be at this point. We are going to the Chiefs. Similar story here. And this is the way it's been, just like the Bills, just like Denver. You got Mahomes, who just wants to win, doesn't want to throw for 5,000 yards, doesn't want to throw 40 touchdowns. He just wants to win, which is great in real life, but not in fantasy. And who's he going to throw to? Is Rice going to be the guy? Is he going to be playing Rice? Because he may get in trouble for his crimes. Worthy had a good year. He's pretty trustworthy. You got Hollywood Brown. You got Kelsey. They have some rookies. Royals look really good. The running backs, or Pacheco got hurt, but they have two other ones. I mean, I don't know fantasy-wise who I would take. You could have a great year, do the chalk, and do Mahomes and Kelsey. Could be great again. You could take a chance on Worthy. You could take a chance on Rice. Probably Worthy is the best choice out of all of them. But nobody's going to, I don't see anybody winning a fantasy league on that team for you. Las Vegas Raiders. Geno Smith comes over, who is okay. He's not Josh Allen. Josh Brown is a stock guy. But and their receivers are the same situation. They have Jacoby Myers. They got Tucker. They got Thornton. Thornton could be the next real deal, but is he going to get time? They got Bowers at tight end, who had a great last year, but now they're saying he's going to split time with Mayer. The only real fantasy value on the Raiders is Gente, who's the running back, who looks like, Josh Jacobs. Ironically, he's going to looks like to be the workhorse. Get plenty of time playing, catches passes, does the goal line. So Gente, if you can get him, seems to be the good pick on the Raiders and the Chargers. Herbert, he looks like a great quarterback, acts like a great quarterback. Is he a great quarterback? I don't know. I think he's the kind of guy who's going to get you there, but not to the finish line. McConkey had a great year last year, but now they brought in Keenan Allen. So what does that mean? Trey Harris looked great in preseason, but they brought in Keenan Allen. So what does that mean? And their running back, I was really excited about Hampton. Then they brought in Najee Harris. Najee Harris had a fireworks incident with his eye. So Hampton seems to be the way to go, but now they say they're going to split his time. I have a feeling Hampton is going to be the guy on that team. Trey Harris could be a sleeper on that team. There's another guy, Lambert Smith, who looked really good. But once they brought in Keenan Allen, it kind of messed everything up. The only saving grace is Quentin Johnson is out. Not good for him, but it reopened up some spots. So maybe Trey Harris and Lambert Smith get a break there. But I don't know who's going to win a league for you on that team. And that is the AFC. We are going to go through the NFC, starting with the NFC East, Dallas Cowboys, who, by the way, so far I'm watching their Netflix documentary, and it's really good. Dallas is interesting. This is a year where, again, one of those teams where their defense is going to be bad. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and Dak Prescott knows how to throw the ball. So I'm in on Dak Prescott, and you know where he's throwing it. He's throwing it to CeeDee Lamb. So that's a good stack. Then he also has Pickens, who came over from the Steelers, who never really has had a good quarterback, and now he does. So that's a good threesome right there. There's also secondary players like Ferguson, the tight end, who could end up getting some good time. Their running backs are iffy. Unless they make a trade, I don't know where the running backs are going to be, but Jaden Blue is another one where you can pick him up real cheap. And if Prescott has a good year, he could throw the ball to Jaden Blue, drop short passes to Jaden Blue, and that guy could run. So that's a pretty good sleeper there too. So there's some action on the Cowboys worth looking at if you're interested in that. New York Giants, they have a really tough schedule and a really good defense. So that's not the best combination for the offense. Russell Wilson's going to start, but Jackson Dart seems to be the quarterback of the future, and he may get some time in the second half of the year. So if you're looking at a best ball situation where you need to do really well in the playoffs at the end of the year, Jackson Dart could be a dart throw. And obviously it's all about Malik Neighbors. He looked unbelievable last year. Is he healthy? He's got a toe issue. He's got a foot issue. If he's healthy, he's a top pick. He's going to get thrown the ball all day long. But you got to know if he's healthy. And then as far as running backs go, I think Tracy's going to have a good year. He's got to hold on to the ball. And as a little bit of a sleeper, Theo Johnson is the tight end who's like 6'6", and I think he's going to do really well too. The world champion, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm never in love with Hurts. I don't like the tush push, but numbers don't lie. Barkley is amazing. Can he be used that much and not go down a notch? Probably not. I would think that he's not going to have as good a year as last year, and he kind of needs to keep wherever you're going to get him, whether it's best ball as a top pick or an auction, or he's only got room to go down, basically, right? Again, the receivers, I love A.J. Brown, but he doesn't seem to get the attention. Devontae Smith always has 3 good games a year, but the other games he disappears. They just traded for Mechie, who I think is really good and could be a sleeper, but that's on a case-by-case. So if you can get Barkley cheap, take him, but I don't think you're going to, so I would pass. Washington Commanders. I had a lot of Jaden Daniels last year. The guy looks like Lamar Jackson, which is pretty damn good. McLaurin has been out on contract dispute. If he's back, okay. The question you got to ask yourself is, who's getting the throws? Is Debo getting the throws? Is this the Debo from 3 years ago where he just does everything and kicks ass? I hope so. I'd like to think so. Otherwise, I don't know who they're throwing. I don't know why they're not out getting another receiver at this point. Their running back situation is also a mess. I never liked Brian Robinson. Eckler seems too old. They have a rookie, Krosky Merritt, who looks like great, but do they plan on using him to that extent? Daniels is a pick. Like I said, like Lamar and Allen, can't go wrong. They can, on their own, get their own points. They don't need to be stacked, but it's great if you can figure it out. I guess Debo is your closest bet, but and Ertz. Ertz is not bad, but he's also old. So figure that one out. NFC North, Chicago Bears. I was hoping Caleb Williams would be a no-brainer. He doesn't seem to be that. A lot of stirs around that he's not progressing the way he should be. His numbers have not been great. They're going to try to run the ball a lot. And then, again, he's got Moore, Odunze, Burden, Kmet. They have Loveland now. Who's he going to throw to? Which receiver can possibly have a 35-point game? I don't see it. Maybe DJ Moore, but it won't happen a lot. The running back situation, I never liked Swift. Roshan Johnson, they always say he's going to get the goal line work, but does he? Their rookie is Manange, who I would take a chance with as a real deep sleeper. I have some of him. I'm hoping that Swift shits the bed like he normally does. So that could be a really good pick, especially on a team that wants to run the ball. Detroit Lions. I like the Netflix show with Goff. He came off really well. Is he somebody I want to take in fantasy? Maybe. I mean, he doesn't run a lot at all. He runs about as much as I do. But he throws pretty well. He's got great receivers. He'll get you a decent score. Is he going to win you the fantasy league? I don't think he will. But, he could get you to the finals. St. Brown is great. But now they're saying he's going to split time a little bit. Not split time, but some of his, Jameson Williams is going to take a little bit of his steam. They have a rookie, Tesla, who's worth taking. He had a really good preseason. You're looking for a sleeper in that team. Tesla is the way to go. Obviously, no secret, Jamar Gibbs is the guy to take there. I hate that he gets split with Montgomery on some things, especially the goal line. But if they just let Jamar Gibbs do his thing, he could be the number one pick in football and get you the fantasy league. But, if Montgomery gets hurt, then you have that. But I don't think it happens otherwise, but still an unbelievable talent. Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love, he's almost like Tua to me. He doesn't look good out there, but he does get the job done. And in this particular case, it seems like we know where his throws are going to go to. It's going to go to Matthew Golden at this point, who's the rookie, first-round pick. Jaden Reed looked like a superstar at some points, but it just hasn't worked out. Then they got, the rest of the guys, Romeo Dobbs and the Wicks and, all these other, Watson. Nobody seems to stand out. So you're kind of just waiting for one person to take the lead. I think it's going to be Golden. So Love to Golden would be great. Tyler Kraft is a pretty good tight end. Above average, sneaky numbers. And Josh Jacobs is a great pick because there's really no backup for him. He's going to take all the goal line. He's going to take, the passes. Jacobs is a top-notch pick on that team. Minnesota Vikings. All right. Interesting team because they had Cousins who did really well. They had Darnold, who did really well. And now they have McCarthy, who could be the most talented one of the three. But he's a rookie, basically. He didn't play last year. So what's he going to do? I believe the system is the system, and I could go into that system and have a pretty good year. So I'm going to assume McCarthy is going to do well. I would want some McCarthy. He also could run a little bit. The problem is messy wide receivers. Normally you could say Justin Jefferson, sign it up, put it away, and you're good. But now he has, I think, a hamstring issue that he's had before. What's that all about? Jordan Addison, I think, is suspended. Naila is pretty good. Hawkinson's pretty good. Supposedly the rookie, Ty Felton, is pretty good. Who's going to get the ball? You got to kind of pay attention to what's happening there. In the running back situation, Aaron Jones is the running back who had a really good year last year. I never loved him. And now they brought in Jordan Mason, who's really good. And looks like it's going to be a 50-50 split. I mean, if you can get either one of those guys pretty cheap, they're worthwhile. They're both going to get a lot of work. Again, is either one of those are going to win you the league? I don't think so, but they're going to be solid. McCarthy could win you the league, but you got to figure out who he's throwing to. If Jefferson's healthy, then you got your answer. Naylor could have some really good games as a sleeper. I'd keep an eye on him. Hawkinson will have a good year if you just need a tight end. But obviously, there's talent there. You got to just figure that one out. AFC South. This probably is the most fun division and fantasy-friendly division. Starting with your Atlanta Falcons. So if you paid attention last year when Cousins was the quarterback, about 3 quarters into the season, Penix took over. And he seemed Lamar Jackson light. He doesn't run as much as Lamar Jackson, but he's got that. He's a lefty, and he throws really well. Drake London was the recipient of that, who seemed like he was going to get a lot of work, and now Darnell Mooney is hurt, so London should absolutely kick ass, at least for the first half of the year, getting most of the looks. Ray McLeod has the potential to come in, replace Mooney temporarily, and get a lot of work. That's a sleeper. Kyle Pitts, the tight end, has been a disappointment, but this could be the year where he comes back. I think Penix really likes him, so that's a sleeper. And running back, Bijan, doesn't matter. Bijan Robinson is probably the most talented running back in National Football. He seems to be getting most of the work now, as opposed to Gibbs and Montgomery. It used to be Robinson and Algier on this team. They seem to come to their senses now and really concentrate on Robinson. And with that, Robinson it could be your number 1 pick in the whole league. Carolina Panthers. They looked terrible, and then they started to turn the corner a little bit. Bryce Young, who looked like a peewee on the field at one point and overwhelmed, suddenly kind of figured shit out. And I like his last few games. I like his approach. He never gave up. And now he has a really good receiver, McMillan, who unfortunately got a little hurt, but should be the number 1 receiver. So that's a good pick. Thielen is, 40 years old. Not kidding, but he's, old reliable. He could certainly get, 10, 12, 15 points a game for you. Again, is that going to win your league? I don't think so. Leggett could be a superstar, but I'm not sure about that. Tight end, Sanders could be a really good sleeper. and the running back situation is kind of up for grabs there. Not up for grabs. Hubbard is the number 1 running back. But they brought in Dowdle, who sneakily got 1,000 yards last year. So that's not going to help Hubbard. But Young should have a good year. If you can marry him with McMillan and maybe Sanders, that's not a bad combination. And they're going to be playing from behind. Saints. Who's going to be the quarterback? I think it's going to be Tyler Show. If it is, I would take a little bit of him because they do have some good receivers. Olave, if he can stay healthy, and Shaheed is a really good receiver, and Juwan Johnson. They don't have much behind him, which is good. They're going to play a lot. I mean, Brandon Cooks is the third receiver. I mean, God, that guy hasn't been good in 6 years. So we had Kamara, Olave, Shaheed, Johnson, all good. They're going to not have a good defense, so they're going to be playing from behind. There's some talent there, and they're playing Tennessee in week 17 for best ball, which could be a shootout. So it's something to pay attention to. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've been a fun team, and they will continue to be a fun team. Baker Mayfield is probably the fourth best quarterback after Allen and Jackson and Daniels. Bucky Irving is, if he continues on what he did last year, will be a top running back. Egbuka is the sleeper of the year there. Evans is old. Godwin is hurt. McMillan is hurt. So Egbuka is going to start and do well. Deep sleeper is Tez Johnson. And even Trey Palmer. But Egbuka, Irving, and Mayfield. That's the trifecta on that team at the moment. All right, finishing out, NFC West. Arizona Cardinals. I've tried to like Murray. I really have. But he actually seems too small. He'll have some great moments and great games, but over the long season, I don't know. The only thing I would say is in best ball, they're playing week 17 in Cincinnati, who it should be a 37-34 game. So if you can get as far as you can go in the year and get to Murray in week 17, could be a grand slam. But good luck the rest of the way. Marvin Harrison Jr., I was hoping he'd be the next CeeDee Lamb. Maybe he will be. But he needs somebody to throw it to him. McBride has been a really good receiver, but doesn't catch touchdowns for whatever reason. So it's a rough team. Connor as a running back is okay, but Benson is going to get more work. So I don't know how much fantasy value there is on this team. Obviously, McBride, you get a little bit, but I don't want to pay up for McBride too much. But again, they're playing against Cincinnati week 17, so if you can find somebody on that team, it might be fun. The Rams. Stafford is old and hurt. So what does that mean? I haven't taken a lot of Puka. I like Puka. He could win a tournament for you, but he's got to have a quarterback. I don't think Garoppolo is going to do it. I don't even think Stafford's going to do it. And now he's got to deal with Devontae Adams taking up his throws. So I don't see Puka having this breakout year at this point. I like Adams, but again, he's getting a little older too, and he's dealing with the same things with a quarterback. The only guy that seems to be in a good standing right now is Kyron Williams. Every year you're like thinking it's done for him. He's not going to do it, but then he comes back and does it again. And now he just signed a 3-year contract. So he seems to be in good shape. He gets all the work. That would be the pick. San Francisco 49ers. All right, you tell me. You tell me about McCaffrey. He'll win you the league or lose you the league. That's the way it's been. If he plays and he's healthy, there's nobody better. But the question is if he plays. Do you want to gamble on that? That's up to you. I mean, out of 100 lineups, I'll take him 8 times, 10 times. I'm not going to be overweight on him, but I'm going to have him just in case. I hope he does well for his own sake, but he's coming on 30 years old. He's been hurt 2 of the last 5 years. I don't know. We'll see. In the wide receiver room, good and bad. I mean, they had Debo, he's gone. They had Ayuk, he's a mess. So who's left? Jennings and Pearsall. Jennings is looking for a new contract after his one good year. Pearsall got shot last year and seems like the guy this year, so that could be a good pick. Kittle, I never loved him. He either gets 30 points or 3 points. So you figure out the weeks he gets 30 points. I can't. And Purdy is good, but he needs people to throw it to. All right, last one. Seattle Seahawks. A man, Sam Darnold, who came from Minnesota and did really well, is now here. Was it the system or was it him? I think it's more the system. Doesn't mean he can't do well. He's got an interesting team to throw to. Najigba is great. Cup is older, but Horton is a sleeper on that team who should do really well. Arroyo is the tight end, but really, and I made this note last year, he reminded me of Bourne. AJ Barner is the real sleeper here as tight end. And then they're going to run the ball a lot. If Kenneth Walker stays healthy, grand slam. He hasn't always been able to stay healthy, and their backup is really good, Charbonnet. So you can do that a week by week, or if you're in best ball, you could take both. You could take Walker and Charbonnet, and you're golden. But one of those two will do really well. And Barner and Horton would be my picks on Seattle. All right. We made it through. It's a long video. I doubt you're still here, but just wanted to share a little bit about fantasy football. It's exciting. It's fun. It's a good distraction from the regular world, and I enjoy it. And I've had success, and I wish you the same success. And let me know if you do well. Let me know if you got any good tips, and give me some tips too. I'm always open to hear your advice. All right. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Thanks.